The US Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, is under intense pressure over the allegation that he gave a kill everybody order to the US military for a second strike on a crippled, burning boat carrying drugs in the Caribbean in September. President Trump, who earlier said he wouldn't want a second strike against the two survivors who were clinging to the wreckage, has now backed Hegseth, who said in the statement the strikes were meant to be lethal, destroying narco boats and killing the narco-terrorists who are poisoning the American people. But the United Nations has demanded an inquiry, and senior Republicans in Congress are calling this a war crime. Let's talk to Ambassador John Bolton, National Security Advisor to Donald Trump in his first administration. Ambassador Bolton, thank you very much indeed for joining us. There is always a moment, or there can be a moment, when people go too far when they're going after the bad guys. What do you think about this case?
Well, I think the attacks on the drug boats themselves are part of the confusion surrounding what Trump's objectives are in Venezuela. Does he want to overthrow Maduro? Does he want to stop the drug trafficking? What exactly is he trying to prove here? And we don't know the answer to that. And I think that incoherence in their thinking means there's no strategy, and the attacks on the drug boats are likely primarily to demonstrate that Trump's tough on drugs. We're all against illegal drugs. He's really tough on them. Now, what exactly Hegseth said, and to whom he said it, and how many people he heard what he said remains unclear. But make no mistake, that is going to be the subject of pretty extraordinary congressional oversight in the very near future.
Absolutely. Because if he did say kill everybody, and two people who were desperately sort of clinging to a burning boat were then blown up or killed by American forces, in many people's eyes, that would be kind of sadistic and going far too far.
Well, as we now know, in the last 3 days of intensive press coverage of what the U.S. Army, U.S. military's own manuals are about dealing with situations like these two survivors, it's pretty clear that they were out of combat and therefore were not legitimately subject to further attack with the use of lethal force. There's a lot of question about the initial attacks on the drug boats and whether they had adequate justification. But I think what's really at stake here is what the iconic French foreign minister, the Marquis de Talleyrand, once said: it's worse than a crime, it's a mistake, because it puts the U.S. in a very, very unpleasant position, again, without knowing what the strategic objective is.
You mentioned the overall objective and the question marks about that when it comes to Venezuela and Maduro. There is meant to be a no-fly zone imposed by the United States over Venezuela. Venezuela clearly thinks that this is close to a declaration of war. How bad are things getting between the two countries, and what do you think President Trump's ultimate aim is?
I don't know what his ultimate aim is, but worse than that, I don't think he knows what his ultimate aim is. The Wall Street Journal made a very good point in an editorial this morning saying Trump provoked this crisis with Maduro, and only one of them will come out a winner. To be clear, I support overthrowing Maduro. I support the use of military force to overthrow Maduro because there are legitimate U.S. national security interests at stake. But having been through the effort in Trump's first term to overthrow Maduro, we owe it to ourselves to succeed this time for U.S. interest and for the people of Venezuela. I don't see evidence that Trump has thought this through. I don't think he knows how to do a strategy to get from point A to point B. And I'm very worried that we've sailed a full carrier strike group across the Atlantic Ocean to the Caribbean without really knowing what to do with it. Maybe we'll find out after tonight, but this is the cart before the horse. You should have the strategy first, then decide how you're going to carry it out.
And in terms of the attacks on the drug boats, the narco boats, I mentioned a couple of Republicans there who've been talking about this as a war crime. Is this further evidence, do you think, this inquiry, of a kind of fracturing or a splintering of Republican support for the president in Congress?
Yes, I think over the past 30 days, starting with some by-elections in early November, you've seen a lot of discontent within the Republican Party. And these two congressional investigations, remember, Congress is under Republican control, House and Senate. But the Republican chairman of the Senate and House Armed Services Committee, respectively, are going to look into this Hegseth order on the second strike. And I will guarantee you those hearings will expand dramatically beyond that limited question, is that the entire Venezuela operation will come under scrutiny. And we'll see how the Trump administration does in explaining what they're doing. Since I don't think they know, I think they'll have a tough time.
Very interesting. A left field question, if you don't mind. My country, Scotland, will be in the United States for the World Cup. We're very excited about it. But there's a couple of examples of other countries, Haiti and Iran, for instance, who are having difficulty getting supporters there and possibly games being moved from one state to another. Do you think the World Cup is safe in Donald Trump's hands?
Well, let me say I'm 80% Scottish, so I wish the Scottish team all the best. This is, again, Trump not thinking through. He wanted the World Cup. He wanted it. Believe me, I've watched this play out beginning in the first term. Now he's got it, and he decides that he didn't fully understand that teams like Iran would show up. There's no excuse to give Haiti any difficulty at all. I think Iran is a different category, but if that's the way the World Cup is played, let some other country host it.
Yeah, and also this business of moving games out of democratic cities and into Republican ones.
Well, this is typical Trump. Everything is about what he wants to do. Norms, conventions, civil society, they don't mean anything to him. I do think this is now increasingly well understood. It helps explain why Trump's popularity is declining.
And, the world spotlight will be on America during the World Cup. Do you think there's a danger that Donald Trump could ruin it?
Well, I think the country will do fine. I think we'll behave and we'll show that we're proper sports fans and all the rest of it. God knows what Trump will do.